it going? Susan Ruth here. Thanks for listening to another episode of Hey Human Podcast. On this episode, I sat down with Dustbowl Revival. They are a band from Venice, California, and there's 8 people in the band, and 4 of them came over to the house: Wolf, Liz, Zach, and James. And we sat down in the kitchen and chatted about the new record, which has already dropped. It's out now, and it's called the Dustbowl Revival, named after them, obviously. I'll play a track from the album on this episode. It's a track called If You Could See Me Now. So I'm going to get all NPR, and after they mention the name of the song, I slip it in there. It's very exciting. I felt like I had such a grown-up podcast in that moment. For those of you that are in Nashville, so this episode will come out on the 23rd, 22nd, 24th. No, what am I saying? 22nd. So this episode will come out on the 22nd, and they're playing in Nashville on the 24th, on Saturday, at 7 p.m. at the Cornelia Fort Air Park. However, the day this episode comes out, Thursday, the 22nd, they'll be in Chicago at Space. And it's SPACE all dotted out, like S.P.A.C.E. I don't know if that means it's actually not called Space, or maybe it's called something magical and weird, and I don't know. You never know with the acronym. On Friday, they're in Owensboro, Kentucky at the Romp Fest. That sounds fun. And then Saturday, like I said, they're here in Nashville. Sunday, they're in Johnson City, Tennessee. Monday, Columbus, Ohio. Then they go to Cleveland, Ohio. And then they hit New York. So they're rocking it. They got all the 8 of them, and they're hitting the road. You can check them out, of course, at dustbowlrevival.com, and their tour dates are on there and all that good stuff. They pressed vinyl for this record, so it's very cool, as well as, all the regular kinds of ways to get music. They've got it all. And I believe, if I remember correctly, in this episode, they also have 45s, which is very cool. For those of you that don't know, a 45 is like a tiny little record. It's very cute. I used to have a 45 player when I was little, but, it was all Fisher-Pricey type songs, so it's fun to have grown-up 45s that get put in the jukebox. I've heard the whole record. It's really great. Very fun. They have horns. It's just fun. It's super duper fun. I highly recommend this record, and I'm not getting paid to say that. I'm just saying it because it's true. What else do I want to say that's true? Oh, I know what I want to say that's true. Just as an offset, it doesn't really have to do with anything. I watched the season 4 of Sherlock Holmes. It's very good. Netflix is responsible for all my insomnia. Or maybe my insomnia exists and Netflix is there to placate it. It's one of those two things. Maybe it's both those things. It's hard to say. The usual stuff, heyhumanpodcast.com for all the links and all the information and things. And then obviously the podcast is on various listening places, because you're listening, so you know that. But iTunes, Podbean, Blurby, what else? Stitcher. And I'm on all the social media, Twitter, which I'm not good at, as I always say, Instagram, which I try to be pretty good at, and Facebook. You can find it at Hey Human Podcast. And please email me, Susan, at heyhumanpodcast.com. I would love to hear from you. And if you have cool people you think I should talk to, or recommendations for whatever, let me know. I just, if you want to say hi, say hi. I'm coming up on a year of doing Hey Human Podcast, so I'm very excited about that. July will be the 1-year mark, and we're growing like crazy. I think the last I looked, it said 8,000 listeners, so keep listening, keep spreading the word. It's very exciting. I don't know. Oh, for my year anniversary, I'm going to do the thing where my best friend Ellen interviews me for the podcast, so keep your ears open for that one. Got a lot of really cool episodes coming up I'm super excited about, and just all the good things. Dustbowl Revival, Venice, California band, on tour, new album, super groovy. Hope you like it. Here we go. Great. Hey everybody.
Hi.
Welcome to Hey Human Podcast.
Thanks.
This is the largest amount of people I've had so far. It's very exciting. Dustbowl Revival. Welcome to Nashville.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to go around and say your names?
Hi, my name is Ulf Bjorlin, and I am the trombone player.
Hi, I'm Liz Beebe, and I sing.
My name is Zach Lubeton. I play guitar and sing.
Hi, I'm James, and I play bass.
Yay. All right, so let's get down to business. You guys are working on a record. Very exciting, a new record.
Yeah.
And what's it going to be called? Because it looked like I wasn't sure what the actual album title was.
Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
I think that one's been taken.
It's going to be self-titled, so it's going to be called the Dustbowl Revival. Kind of really simple, and it'll be the first time where we kind of are all collaborating, and the songs have a really cool, unified kind of sound going through it, where, you know, in the past we've done stuff where it's more bluegrass in one side of the record and more New Orleans and swing in the other part of the record, and this is kind of has a very soulful feel throughout.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And how far along are you in the process? You're all done recording, I assume. If it drops on the 16th of June?
Yeah, so
Yes.
It's being manufactured right now. We actually just got the test cuts, which is the process in making vinyl before you get the test pressings of vinyl.
Okay.
So, and they sound good. So,
Who's
Does it
doing
sound
your
like
vinyl?
vinyl?
I'm not sure who's actually doing the vinyl itself, but the label putting it out is called Signature Sounds out of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, there's always a lot of preparation that goes into putting out a record. I mean, this started actually way back in October 2016 when we released the first kind of single, Busted, and then
And there's a video for that.
yeah. And we put out kind of like an A-side, B-side with a 45 vinyl, and then, you know, sort of as a
little teaser.
hint of what's to come. Because I think, you know, sometimes when you play as much as we do, folks are really loyal. They come to shows and they're like, well, give me something new that you guys are working on. So we were able to share that, and then I think in April will be the first single of this full record, and then in June 16th the whole shebang. So,
Which would also be a good name for a record.
The whole shebang. Oh, man, if only we'd known.
Oh, is it too late?
The B-side on the 45, though, won't be on the record, so it's sort of like a special edition song.
Gives you incentive to purchase the 45.
Yeah, definitely. And so you have one song that appears twice on the record? Is that correct?
There's one
Yeah,
song
we couldn't
that-
decide what to do, so we just did twice in a row. the
I've
same
done that
song.
before on record, so that's cool.
Don't go, James.
no, it's like an outro. There's
Yeah,
like we kind of had this. It's actually my favorite song called "Honey I Love You," and it's featuring Kev Moe, the blues guitar player, and he's from Nashville now. And
Everyone is.
It's
Only a matter of time before you get
All of Los
here.
Angeles is moving here.
So we kind of added this thing live where we would finish the song kind of and then do a sneak attack, kind of come back and sort of this funk breakdown.
Yeah.
And with the whole thing, I think it was almost 7 minutes, 6.5 minutes long. And
nobody got time for that.
well, I think if you wanted people
Radio
to
doesn't
really
have time for that.
listen to the track, the first part of the track, which stands alone really nicely, kind of were able to split it up. But a lot of us were really passionate about not getting rid of that last part, so we kind of have it as a secret track at the end.
Or not so secret. Thanks for spoiling it.
Oh, well, I mean, that's a good question. I can always take that out, because after I said it, the look on your face, I thought, I wonder if that's supposed to be a surprise.
No.
Is it a surprise?
I don't know, is it?
I think it's kind of a surprise.
It's a surprise the first time you listen to the record, but hopefully people will listen to it more than
Well,
once.
your audience will know. They're
That's
in the
true.
know.
Yeah.
This is a perk for them to
Exclusive
continue
information.
listening.
I guess
No.
that's right. So, when I listened to what Jeff sent me, Jeff being your manager, he's like, okay, well, it's a little bit different than what they're used to do and all that. And I listened through. I love it. First of all, it's a great record. It's super fun.
Thanks.
And I love all the horns. I'm such a fan of horns and stuff. And but it's different, right? You guys have made a conscious choice to sort of go in a little bit of a different direction. What brought you to that? That's new
Would you say that it's conscious? It feels sort of like a natural evolution to me.
Yeah, it always feels slower of a move within the band because we've been working on some of these songs for years and playing them live. And there's always this delay in recording where the time you put out a record, it almost feels like they're lived in these songs because you've been honing them for so long. But I feel like the sort of soul and funk thing merged with the sort of folk sounds that we've been doing for years. It's sort of always been there under the surface, maybe, and maybe they've sort of come to the surface as maybe our own unique sound.
Yeah.
Maybe like moving towards one sound rather than having a whole bunch of different sounds on a record. Like on that past record, it kind of seemed like a little bit more of a. I know people had used the term like safari. Or
adventure.
Some sort of adventure where you're going from one place to another place to another place, and you're moving through all these different types of environments. And this one seems a little bit more like those environments have all merged into one thing.
But it's interesting, when I was listening to it, I wouldn't consider it a homogenous record in any way.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely...
just curated.
Yeah.
Just unified.
Yeah.
Unified.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely always in the honing process when we worked with this producer, Ted Hutt, who did a great job sort of collecting our thoughts and sort of merging them into one sound. And like you said, there's definitely some folky and quieter songs on here that we haven't been able to share before. In the studio, you can really have that hushed environment and really hear the nuances of each other's voices and the strings and the horns. And I think what Ted wanted was the really emotional songs that, were simmering beneath the surface to kind of like bring them out into the open, like to tell people what you're really feeling, And that's, as a lyricist, it was kind of difficult for me because there's always the fear that it gets too personal or it's cheesy or it's over the top, but the rawness, I think, and the immediacy sometimes of just saying what you really think and what you really feel is, I think, going to be in these songs.
So are you always the principal lyricist and everybody chips in on music, or how do y'all come to that process?
I tend to write most of the lyrics. Liz has been writing more lyrics, which has been great. The second track, If You Could See Me Now, is hers.
Work it
will kind of definitely create the music around some of the framework that I'll bring to a song. And sometimes a song, the first track of the record, Call My Name, it was kind of just a blues. There was it was going to be gone. We weren't ever going to play the song.
That one grew tremendously from its inception to what you hear on the record, and it's easily one of the coolest tracks on there, and it's really pumping. There was one moment on that track that was incredibly polarizing, and it was me going, "Oh yeah!" and half the band was like, "No way." And then Ted is like, "It's cool," so it stayed.
Well, I think
it's a cool opening to the record.
I feel like I want to draw a cartoon to actually make that entire segment come to life.
But that song we did explode apart and then piece back together.
How do you deal with that stuff when one of you is so gung ho about something and the rest of you say one or sort of mediocre on it?
There is a voting process within a band of 8 people.
But we always try it. If someone has an idea, we always try it. Give it a shot.
Unless it's a really bad idea.
No, we always try.
It's a process. Yeah, we do have a specific voting process for us, and we talk about it, and I think we let it simmer and we try it out, and we try it a bunch of different ways and see where it goes. And if it doesn't go anywhere, you haven't really lost anything.
Well, I think with this producer Ted, when he's worked with bands like Old Crow Medicine Show and Dropkick Murphys, and I think what he liked about us in a similar vein is there is some messiness and kind of there's this punk rock kind of.
Oh, it's alive. It's very alive.
And I think he doesn't want the sounds to be too arranged to the point where they're lifeless, and so something where Ulf is kind of letting loose in this joyful yelling thing in the studio, not thinking it's being recorded. Sometimes that's the best stuff that really shows your personality. And there's stuff of me in certain songs, yelling in the background, which I actually didn't notice.
To do.
I didn't notice until you're listening in headphones. You're like, really though? You're going to keep that? Because you're always self-conscious about your own stuff.
Yeah. And it's totally in our old albums have that too.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you have to re-listen to it, and you have to have other people listen to it too, right? Because when it comes out of you at first, and you don't really have the perspective to judge it in the same way that somebody who's listening to it would. So
I always love this line that it's in a Wilco song that Jeff Tweedy says, like, I have a heart attack every time I hear myself sing.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like eventually you just put your blood and guts into it and walk away and just be like, this is cool, and hopefully the rest of the world will enjoy it.
And how long did it take you to get from the beginning to the end of the album? I know you said it was years in the making on some of the songs, but when you went into the studio and started working
we rehearsed it from like the end of November to the very beginning of January minus the holidays, and then we were in the studio for 10 days. And that's it. That's all we had.
I mean, we've been picking on it. I feel like we've been working on like our process of writing for like the last like year and a half or 2 years, and then it was
the honing and the making it.
Yeah,
it was only like a month and a half, and then a couple weeks.
Yeah. There was a solid amount of prep work, though. There was, for me personally, me and Matt, the trumpet player, Matt Rubin, who's not here. He's exploring Nashville right now, making friends. He and I, there was a couple of tunes where for me at least, I was like, I don't know what we're going to play on this. Like, we're about to record. I have no idea what happens in this section. And then we, on the spot, try some things like, oh no, that sounds awful. No, that doesn't, that sounds like a clown card. This is kind of cool. And then you have an idea, and then Ted Hutt, the producer's like, well, try doing a little bit of this. But he says it with a British accent. And then we try that. It's like, okay, well, let's drop the last one. Okay. Anyways, so it takes shape. And then it's like, cool. Well, that happened.
Yeah.
Well, some of it was
cool.
The process isn't even finished when you get into the studio. You still have to get in there, and then you have to see how it sounds, and then you move things around from there. So it's still ongoing. The parts are still shifting even even when you're in there. So you have to be open to it.
You get to the end and you think, oh, it's all recorded, and you go back and listen and you think, oh, I should have done that differently. I mean, I think you're always writing. Even when a song is put to bed,
absolutely,
and you hear it even maybe years later, you think, oh, if only I'd done that on the bridge or done that on the verse.
And the song's already improved, like, from the time that we recorded it. It's
for
like,
your live shows?
Yeah, it's like, I wish we had done that.
Well, that's the beauty of it, is that we get to play them live, so we play them different every night.
Yeah. Which is cool. I'd rather have an album be, a great album and then go see a really sensational live show than get a great album and then go see a live show that's terrible, which happens
or exactly
the
same, right, as the album.
Yeah,
and then you could have just stayed at home.
Right? It's supposed to always grow and change. And I think that's what's so interesting about you guys, because so many times bands, they start out, they have this sound, and they have an audience who loves that sound, and then as one is wont to do, you begin to grow and you hear other influences and you change, but your audience gets pissed at that. But you guys can come to the table. You already have
they get pissed.
all
I dare
you know what I
them.
mean? Your sound is more on the eclectic side, so it's almost an expectation that organic happening takes place.
I mean, I think
which is great.
Could work in our favor.
I would think so. Yeah.
I mean, I think things are like changing now too with that expectation. I mean, people's listening habits are so different now, and they're changing so frequently that.
You mean in general, or you mean your audience?
No, I mean in general too. I mean, just the way that people are going to process this record and listen to it. Some people are going to buy the vinyl. Some people are going to buy a CD. Some people are going to listen to it online. Some people are going to put it on shuffle immediately. Some people are going to hear it on radio. Some people are going to hear it on the internet, on the podcast, only small segments. There's just a million different ways that people could hear it and could interact with it.
Jack White's going to listen on vinyl.
Great, great. We have vinyl.
Yeah, I mean, I think I guess I'm more of an old school listener where, I listen to vinyl at home, or if I really like an artist, I'll actually try to listen to the album all the way through. And I think that's sort of definitely a dying art, but I think like if you really love an artist, you do listen all the way through. And if you really love the album, you can't stop listening to it. Like, you want to listen to it again. Which I think is, definitely the goal is you want to leave people with something that when they get to the end, it's like you kind of have a craving for, either being a part of what's in this musical world that this band has created, whether it's a show or, their videos or stuff, or, you just want to go back to the top, and, I know there's albums that I kind of was inspired by growing up. Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska. It's like one of my all-time favorites. Where it's like there's just this haunting, kind of spooky feeling that he's created just on this, 4-track in his basement, and the songs, can be about different things. There's definitely a Bonnie and Clyde kind of murder ballad thing throughout, but there's this overall feeling you get by listening to the whole thing. And, I'm always afraid as a writer that people in their distractions and in their laziness as a listener, and I fall into this category a lot of time, where you write off a band first 2 songs. Mm-hmm. I'll do that all the time. Someone will be like, oh, you love these guys. I listened to the first couple songs, and I'm like, not into it. And I don't give it a shot. Which kind of like makes me ashamed of myself sometimes, because like my favorite tracks in this new record are 8 and 9.
Yeah.
May I Love You and Got Over.
What's 1 and 2?
Call My Name.
Oh yeah, Call My Call. I knew that. So those are both awesome. They're both awesome. If people hear those two and are like, I'm not into it, then
here's the problem, Wolf, is that like those 2 songs are very at the top, are big, sort of like in your face rock out songs, which I feel like sometimes I'm just not in the mood to rock out. I want something kind of groovy and a little softer, and so there's some kind of more mellow and interesting rhythmic changes towards the end of the record. So you never know. I mean, honestly, you never know what people will gravitate to. I'm always pleasantly surprised when people will come up to us in a show like in Columbus, we were there the other day, and this woman and some other people on this tour too love this song "Bright Lights," right? Which is, it's like a tango kind of about an old man who's decided that he's gonna use drugs to like assisted suicide himself, you know?
Sure, that's my plan when I'm old.
But it's like all these people.
Hey man, I've always been honest about that.
But like I remember when we were recording that, the band kind of fought me on it. Like, why we're gonna put this one on here, you know? And it's like there's certain different types of songs that will hit people in different ways,
sure.
You know. And I think the thing that we've started doing is not just have the big party fun songs, but putting in a little more of the edge and the darkness within the party, which is fun.
Well, I like to say, based on what you were saying earlier, I feel that this is the most mature Dust Bowl record. It's evolution. It's the first record that features songs, I think, that a couple of songs that have no humor in them, but they're actually from the heart, and they're serious and they're sad and they're about real life things. And previous records, like With a Lampshade On, it's all, even this assisted suicide song is a little tongue in cheek, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've always liked putting a little
and that was
twist, like exactly. A twist ending in a song where you don't know where it's going, and then it's like, here, see it is. But I think, you're right.
And I have to imagine Death has a pretty good sense of humor. You'd have to in that job.
I'm going to cry now. So this is the one that, there's... are we allowed to say the titles yet, or I don't know?
You already said a few.
Yeah. I guess we are. Why wouldn't we?
I've already ruined the other cat that was in the bag.
Thanks. There's one called God Over that I really like a lot, and that one is very, very sad and very serious, and there's no humor in it. But it's a beautiful... if I may pat ourselves on the back. But there's like a lot of detail
in it, though, too. I mean, it might not be like direct, like laugh lines, but there's still joy in it, and there's like this depth to it that's not. It's not like flat.
I would say there is still, from a writing standpoint, there is still kind of a twist in it, in a way, where, and this is partially because the verses were in a certain order, and then. I think Daniel, our mandolin player, was like, what if we don't find out that the girl, gets hit by this truck? What if we don't...
Spoiler alert!
What if we don't find out till later in the song?
You can edit that out, right?
Yeah.
No, but it's like, this is the kind of thing where a song can be made better by sort of just putting one verse over here, letting the sort of, what are they talking about? Why is he sad? And when we find out what happened, it's like, whoa, that hits really hard, Whereas it kind of before maybe just we knew right away, which was not as powerful.
So you're building the story.
Yeah.
Theatrics are good in songs, I think.
And this is not to mention the very last track of the album, which is very...
It's also raw and emotional.
Raw and emotional and dark, and that's...
So why do you think you've gotten to this place where you're willing to be dark and vulnerable, and what is... Do you even have an answer for that? Is it just part of growing up?
I think that we've talked a lot, in interviews in the past about trying to play music that comes from an honest and authentic. Mm-hmm. And to at least for Zach and I, when we've spoken about it, has been from coming from an emotionally honest place when we play it, so that we mean what we're singing about. And Zach is such a talented storyteller, and that's where most of his songs come from, is telling these stories, that I think putting ourselves in this empathetic position where we're really feeling what's going on in these stories, and then working with Ted to sort of break them apart and musically make sure that they can be as interesting as possible, but through the collaboration of all 8 of us, has led this album to just allow ourselves to be a little bit more vulnerable than maybe we have been in the past, all 8 together, as opposed to maybe individually. Yeah. So I think that has been a big part of it.
It doesn't seem like it's a big change or a dramatic shift. It seems like it was always kind of there underneath, and maybe the craft is just better, just to kind of add on to mature stuff.
I think there's a difference, like you said, of creating a entertaining live show and having something that can move you in a listening experience. And I think, that is something that I struggle with sometimes, where these songs that we play live that are very high energy, upbeat, fun, tongue in cheek, there's actual, I grew up in a family of actors and comedian type people where it's like you're used to getting that reaction. You want people to smile and laugh and to like be with you, and some of the quieter, darker stuff, they're not going to get it right away. But if you give them a chance to listen to it at home, or over time, even like that song Bright Lights, nobody said anything about that song for a year plus, a year and a half. And now people are like, that song, right? Mm-hmm. It took that long for it to like kind of seep into people's consciousness, maybe.
The lyric sheet helps too.
Maybe, yeah.
I agree. It drives me crazy when lyrics aren't included in records. Yeah. I go crazy because I'm such a word girl that if I can't see the words while I'm going on.
Especially Zach, he mumbles a lot because he's from Chicago, so...
I do the lyrics for my mom because she's like, I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah, parents that's what they're supposed to say. There's a rule book that's in there somewhere. Yeah.
Well, the new album will have lyrics too.
Good, yay. So 8 people in the band. Mm-hmm. Always been 8s? Lucky 8s?
For the past 4.5 years, it's been this 8.
How do 8 people come together, form a band of all things, and not kill each other in 4 years?
Oh, well, we killed the first 15 or so people. So this is...
The backyard survivor.
Cannibals. So I put the band together about 2008 or so. This was not like a professional band. This was like everyone doing their thing in LA. A lot of people come to LA, like myself, from other places with crazy dreams. I thought I was going to be a screenwriter or TV writer, and I've always been in bands since I was like 13, and it's sort of been the thing that like I can't stop doing. But as just a total fun obsession type thing. And I basically put this ad on Craigslist saying, if you play any one of these 20 instruments and you like Louis Armstrong and Tom Petty and
and you have a couch.
Yeah. And I kind of had a bunch of different weird influences, and some really talented people reached out, include people who are still in this band. Ulf and Matt Rubin, our trumpet player, Daniel, our mandolin player. There's people that kind of just by random happenstance happen to be in the right place at the right time. And I think you have to be really lucky to have a band stick around for a while. Mm-hmm. I think it does help. And I think the band doesn't want to hear this, but I think it does help to have not too many songwriters.
That makes sense.
To be honest, I think it's a very difficult thing. I think if you have a bunch of people saying, I got 15 songs, why are we playing my songs? Mm-hmm. And I think the band, works in a way where I don't have as much musical expertise in certain ways, where, the horn players or James here, they have master's degrees in music theory, So you can kind of, employ these
music composition.
What a nerd!
These wizards,
and jazz studies.
Exactly the point.
And now and Liz is able to sort of write more from the female perspective, which I love writing songs for her, but I think it's also we might as well start having people bring more stuff to the table, and I think I'm definitely a really quick writer,
mm-hmm.
and people actually do contribute stuff in this band at a much slower pace. Mm-hmm. Really good stuff sometimes, and I wish they would bring more stuff. Our mandolin player will come in with a song once every 5 months or something, and it's great, and sometimes we'll flesh it out, but I think the difference with this new record is that we're now sort of able to shape things where each person can have a little more of a say, which is, I think, really helpful.
What's interesting is I think with the writing process and 8 people, it's really hard to figure out what role and what sort of role you want to play and how your own process, if you've written beforehand, fits in with that role.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there is a distinctive, like, kind of Dust Bowl sound, and there is a history that kind of, you know, you want to tie it back to that. You don't want to just like be dumping a whole bunch of new stuff that's completely unrelated into it, because it doesn't work continuity wise. But you want to be able to contribute, and so I think I wrote a lot of like different, not necessarily songs, but more experimental music before this, and I think a lot of that didn't necessarily relate to writing songs in the same way that Dust Bowl wrote, but finding those little areas where you can stick something in or say, oh, like, I like this, I think it needs this, what if we did this, you know?
And there's chord structures or things that, like, I'm not going to think of, you know, in the moment. And, you know, example is the song Busted, that was the first single. And we played that for months, you know, in some form, and it was fine, it was good. And then we went into the rehearsal space, and the producer was there, and it was like something not like hitting on this chorus for some reason. And I think our trumpet player Matt was like, "What if we went up to this? Was it a diminished chord on the?
Yeah,
you know,
it goes down to the D sharp diminished, I think. Yeah,
and it's something that I'd be like, why would
chromatically down?
Why would we do that? You know, like, why would we go up there? And it just completely opened the song up. Yeah. You know, like, whereas like every time you get to that part, it's just like, yeah, you know.
And it's interesting from like different like the perspective of content as well too, and writing words, because like some people have a lot more expertise. Like I know Liz, you have you were in the theater before this, right?
The theater,
and so I mean, just like, you know, and like Zach, you know, would write these songs from the female's perspective, or from Liz, because, you know, there's these great vocalists, and I mean, feel free to take over at any point. If you want to talk about this.
For you to.
Well, but then like so there were so many songs we were talking about. It's always either, you know, you're like a jilted lover whose man is cheated,
how I was like,
or
why I'm always angry at the men I'm with and other stuff,
or you're cheating on them or something like that. We're like, how can we get out of this? And then, you know, like with the song that you just wrote, it's like it's neither of those things. And
right,
yeah, hopefully.
Well, and the other thing that's different about Zach and I's writing style is that I can only write, like, the only thing I'm an expert on is my own life and how I feel about the world around me. So I write from a very personal perspective. So when I come to the band with the songs, I have to feel pretty sure that I want to share them at all, because it's like my actual life is in front of you. So if you don't like it, then it's a lot more of like I take it more of a self-judgment than I would if I was like, well, here's this song, do you like it or not, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been, don't get me wrong, it's amazing to have someone who's like, I wrote all these songs for you. Like, I'm not complaining. But yeah, I think it's been really helpful for us to have this group of people that come from different backgrounds and have different styles of writing. And when we get together, we influence each other in ways that we wouldn't have access to on our own.
It's as Socrates used to say, 8 heads are better than 1. And
I love that Socrates quote.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's cool. Like Jocelyn Heffernan is our drummer. Josh Heffernan, our drummer. He came up with, if I'm not mistaken, basically the bass line motif for the track, The Story. Mm-hmm. He came up with the horn riff for Can You See Me Now? It's like, so you never know where nuggets will come from. Well, I think sometimes they will even come from a drummer.
And the writing,
God forbid,
deep inside the mind. Well, the songwriting process is a very personal, you know, exposed thing, you know, which, and I think I'm definitely a little more used to it at this point, just because I've been showing people like, hey, I got a song for like 15 years, but like it is, you know, still a bit hard, I think, to deal with when there's people in the band where sometimes they'll have an idea, they're really into it, and it just doesn't work, you know, myself included. You know, it's like, and you don't know why it doesn't work, but like you have to kind of be able to have a tough outer skin sometimes to be like, okay, you know, and I definitely feel like it's hard, but it definitely makes the songs better in a way where we can all kind of agree in some form that, oh, this feels really cool, you know, instead of one person going like, this feels really cool, and the rest of the band's like, this feels wrong, you know, because music is like it's like a balancing act, you know. If something feels wrong, you fall off the beam, you know, and there's a challenge for me when I sing and play guitar, is that in the studio you can kind of have a controlled environment, and obviously you're not singing and playing most of the time at the same time. So I'm still learning how to play some of these songs we recorded at the shows, you know, and I can't actually play some of the songs and sing them full out yet. Some of them, you know. And I had a friend who saw us in Washington, D.C., who I respect and, you know, plays guitar with us sometimes. And he's like, you know, I got to tell you, you know, some of the songs I heard that you did live were fun, were good. But when I heard them on the record, it was like, I get it now. You know?
Interesting.
That, like, there's some of the songs are actually not quite there yet live, that they're going to be growing over this next year, which is cool.
So do you ever keep a log, or not a log, but an audio snapshot as the song is developing along, just to see how it goes along the years from start to finish? Have you ever done that? It'd be interesting to hear.
I have audio recordings.
Not on purpose. Yeah. Not like a log on purpose, but there have been times where I, for instance, have gone back to voice memos on my phone from like when Zach wrote Busted.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we first started doing that song, people were like, let's do high. Like, we should change the key for you. And I was like, no, you're not changing the key. I'm going to sing it in that key, and it's going to be fine. And when you listen to the original voice memo and you listen to the track now, I mean, there are things in the melody that have completely changed. There are things about the form that we've obviously changed.
I will say that when we were rehearsing and working out the songs, we did record at the end of each day what we had done.
Yeah, in rehearsal, but over like a longer period of time of like years.
Mm-hmm.
You
It'd
know,
be
the way
for
that
the super fans to
hear
this.
We don't want them to ever hear the.
He does sometimes record shows.
Yeah, sometimes
Connor Vance, our fiddle player.
Yeah, there's a great podcast called Song Exploder that I really enjoyed.
Song Exploder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's always funny to me when you hear like major, and they have U2 and people on there, and you hear like Bono's like voice memo on his phone is like, he's like kind of just like not good, for like he's just trying something out, know. It's like everyone's doing that. Like everyone's in their car, they're like, oh, I got this idea. Yeah. I'm muttering into my phone.
That was me 2 days ago. Like, what was I'm in the bathroom at like 7 a.m, like whisper singing into my phone so I don't wake up Josh because I had this idea. It's just like singing in the bathroom, like not trying to have any semblance of a tone come out.
That does happen. Like actually, the other day, I was rooming with James, and I had this song that I had been fiddling with at the venue the night before, but didn't really have anything like locally. And then I woke up at like 7 a.m. with this idea that this guy has like fallen really in love, and you think it's like, oh, he's found the love of his life, but it's a dog. Like, I
know that feeling.
And it's like his like true love is just like him and this dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, all right, well, I don't really want to get up. It's really warm in this bed. But I knew I couldn't go back to sleep at that point because they were like,
right, it's gonna nag you. Don't lose it.
And it's like I could see the typewriter basically happening in my mind where it's like, okay, there's the first verse, there's the second verse, and there's like a point where I have to start writing it down or it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Because it will be gone.
Yes, it will.
Yeah. This was great because Zach and I were rooming together, and I had gone downstairs and I had actually forgotten what room we were in, and I walked upstairs and I just followed the sound of him, like kind of like talking and playing guitar softly in the room.
I think that Elizabeth Gilbert has a TED Talk that's sort of specifically mentions this moment where, I mean, she talks a lot about the idea of genius, essentially as like humans being a vessel for
the gods.
Ideas, from gods, before before Enlightenment and us all deciding that we were geniuses instead of that we had geniuses. But they sort of speak to that exact idea that you'll be struck with inspiration, and if you don't catch it, that the idea will go and
really
find somebody
that.
Else. That's how I work.
Yeah.
Most of the songs that I've written have been like, oh my god, get this out of me before I fall asleep again, and then that's it. It's just there on the page.
I think they sort of float by your consciousness, and if you don't grab them as they go by, you'll end up hearing them elsewhere, which is always weird. You come up with an idea or a story or something, and then say 2-3 years later, you hear it or you see it somewhere, and you think, I had that idea. What I'm trying to say is I invented the spork. No.
Well, there are songs, though, I think that, like, rise to the top, sort of, sometimes, where there'll be a song, and I do this all the time, where I'll write it over a few hours, I'll lay down some sort of demo, and then literally hours later, I don't remember it at all, right?
It's weird.
And then the next day, I'll be like, oh, okay. I have to reteach myself the song. But it never really kind of stuck. And then there's songs, I remember when I was writing the song The Story on here, and I just could not stop singing this song, And it was just sort of, every day, right? And it's like, it's like a little spirit poking you going, you better do this song.
Yeah.
And those other songs that you wrote the same day are like, nope, gone,
It is interesting how that works. Who wrote Good Egg?
I wrote that. That's a while ago. That's
a fun one.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a long
one. That's
Yeah, this
it's
one
at least a year.
Evolved and took its current shape on this album.
Yeah,
it was.
That was an expression that my fiance says a lot. You said it earlier.
You said it when we walked in, and I noticed that.
Yeah, she's like, "You're my good egg."
You said that Jeff was a good egg.
Oh, I did? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Wow.
I was like, who says that? Yeah, like I was like, I never heard that expression for some reason, But I like this idea, and there is definitely, like, if you listen closely, there is kind of a humor going on in the song where it's like this woman who's like, I like everything my way, and
he can't look at any other women because he's blind in both eyes.
Yeah, like he's like almost like how
great
great would it be if like I had a guy who was literally blind, so he's like he only wants me.
Yeah.
And she's an alcoholic because he brings her gin at dawn.
Yes, I caught that. Liking gin myself.
But it's tongue in cheek because it's affection, but it's also, it's sort of what married people can joke about in terms of like, my man knows I'm right even when I'm wrong. Yeah. Like happy life, happy wife, happy life. Yeah. Sort of that old trope.
It was kind of rock and rolly before in a kind of more generic way. Now I feel it's more like it's definitely Tina Turner inspired.
Disco Freak Out.
Freak Out.
It's a fun record. It really is.
Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have a lot of tour dates coming?
Yeah,
always.
Usually.
Yeah. How often do you tour? What's your madcap schedule?
Last year was over 200 days, I believe.
That's a
lot. It's sort of, we have this routine where we kind of we'll do 2 weeks at a time and then take a little, week or so off in a region or so. Right now, we are sort of doing this thing where we started up in West Virginia and then we're going all the way down to Florida. Mm-hmm. It really depends actually where the festivals or different more high-profile gigs take us, and then we kind of will fill in a region in between. So we saw like starting up around Pittsburgh, and we're going all the way down to Florida. So it's like, let's cut through Ohio. We played Columbus. We're going to play Nashville and Lexington, Kentucky, and then Atlanta, and then Florida. So
we're dodging the storm the whole time.
Oh man, yeah.
We
it's
missed
cold
it
out there. Has Airbnb changed your lives?
We tried Airbnb for like 1 minute, and then we were like, "There's 8 of us, and we
it's
all
too
want
hard
a
to
bed,
get.
and this is terrible." So
it's hard to find big houses.
We do hotels.com. That's our magic book.
Hotels.com.
Captain Obvious.
All right, I'm gonna ask.
Sponsored.
I'm gonna ask a
Not
great
yet sponsored.
interview question. Name your first record you ever purchased, first vinyl or CD.
I think it was Michael Jackson. Bad.
Good
Yeah.
one. I'm not judging anybody, but that's a good one.
I had the Bangles on 45.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
The first album I consciously was aware of was there was a friend of mine. I used to play basketball at his house, and I think we were like 7 or so, and he was playing the Beatles Come Together, and I kind of like everything kind of stopped, and I was like, who is this? Like, what is this? And he like looked at me like I was like a crazy person. He was like, well, this is the Beatles, obviously, And then the first album I actually bought myself was, and I went home, of course. My dad's like, yeah, I've been playing that for years, obviously, in the house. We have that album. First album I bought myself was Nirvana Unplugged in New York.
Nice. That is a good record. Yeah. How about you?
I don't know if I remember the first record I bought. The first recorded music I have memory of is a tape of Dave Brubeck's Take 5.
That's awesome.
When I was really young, and I have this very distinct memory of being on a family vacation and driving along this route, actually, I think, because we were going from Chicago to Florida, and listening to it the first time I went over mountains in the backseat of the car, and but I don't remember the first one that I went.
I'm disappointed. I thought it would be like like medieval Gregorian chant.
I remember the first. I remember the first weird music I really got into, which was this CD called "Deep in the Heart of Tuva," and it's a record of Tuvan throat singing, and it had this great like booklet that explained. Like where tuba was and the history of tuba, and I still love it to this day.
On the count of 3, everybody do it. 1, 2, 3.
It's really hard to do. You need to stick your tongue in the right place. Too.
No, we met. There was a Inuit throat singer who was with a band called the Jerry Cans, and that's a different type of throat singing.
Oh, I was going
to
say
a different
full
type.
Circle.
No, you need for the Inuit stuff. You need, if I understand correctly, you need 2 singers, and they kind of bounce back and forth and do this hocket thing. But for the throat singing,
just had just one person.
Yeah, they just had the one person.
I just watched a whole YouTube on this. It's so funny that you're talking about it.
Oh my gosh, synchronicity!
This woman was doing it, and she's explaining how you do it, and I was watching. I watched it for about. I watched her, and then I watched other people, and then I read all about it. And I'm like, man, that's one hell of a rabbit hole.
Is that the Inuit stuff?
No, it was the other one.
Oh, the Tuvan.
Yeah.
You should check out. There's a blues. There's an old blues guitar player, Paul Pena. He wrote Jet Airliner, and there's this documentary about him getting into Tuvan throat singing in like the early 90s.
Genghis Blues.
Genghis Blues. And
that's good.
And flying over to Tuva and
cool.
participating, and he's like, yeah, this is like what Howlin' Wolf was doing, and like
there was a really interesting connection if you listen closely to like Indian raga music and certain types of Delta blues, where you like, especially like Lightning Hopkins or John Lee Hooker, that have this drone kind of. They stay on the one, basically, even and they're playing in open tuning a lot of times, and the sitar, Ravi Shankar, other people, like it's all sort of based around this one drone, Yeah. And then it's just like the amazing patterns that can go up and beyond and then back to the one.
Or even like the tuning and the bending of the notes. Yeah. I mean, in like Indian music, there's many more notes. There's extra notes, and a lot of them, I think, if I understand correctly, are ornamental. And it seems like that's almost like an intuitive thing that like the old blues guys did back then.
Yeah.
And now, I guess.
Yeah, there's an artist named Vas. It's a husband and wife, and their whole record, their records that they do, it's all made up language, and she just sort of off the cuff just starts singing.
Sigur Rós or something.
It's so cool. I dig it big time. Yeah. But y'all are really cool. I'm so excited for you, and
Thank you.
Can't wait to hold the vinyl in my sweet little hands. June 16th.
Yeah,
is when it drops, and will that be available all across the land?
Worldwide. I mean, I assume it'll probably be on Amazon and iTunes and all that stuff too. But we'll be having the vinyls at shows, and Signature Sounds will distribute all over the place. So
come out and see us, and you can get an album.
And dustbowlrevival.com is the website, and I'll put links, as I always do, on heyhumanpodcast.com, and I'll have all the stuffs That was it.
We are all humans.
Yes.
We are all humans.
Speak for yourself.
He's an elf.
You'll get there.
I'm an elf.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks.